Hi everyone, today I'm not going to show you new kits or ongoing projects. My workload reached a whole new level in the beginning of this year, and I needed a week off, completely off, so I just took it. Well, to keep posting at least one video a month and considering that I have to build new content, which I don't really have any at the moment, I decided to show you some of my older projects, starting from this diorama. This diorama was built during 2022 and depicts a Panzer IV H from Revell, a set of figures of Panzer Grenadiers from Zvezda and other figures from Italeri and one in white metal. The base and the house were made from styrofoam and the tree from copper wire. Well, as it was built basically a year before I started this channel, I don't have videos from the construction. But some pictures I took from my cell phone that I shared with some friends, and now that I'm sharing with you. The whole idea began after I started building this Revell 7/2 scale Panzer IV H. I built it partially and then I decided to put it into a base. So the first step was to take some measurements and build a sketch from paper. Then I placed the tank and the figures around the house. When I was satisfied with the overall shape, I cut some Depron sheet and the size and started building the house. The whole engraving and texture was done drawing and cutting it with the hobby knife, just like the building on the Jagdpanther video. I tried a few times before making it right, as you can see here. The facade was a mix of bricks and stucco. To give the three-dimensional look between these features, I pressed the bricks with a ruler prior to give them its own texture. This way you have the impression of overlaying materials. The windows were made with a clear acetate sheet cut to size and small pieces from balsa wood to make the windows frames. The cracked glass and damaged window was done with some brute force and a hobby blade. At first I was planning to make the house closed, but then I decided to make it open from the rear, which increased a lot of work on it. I primed the house with black and gave some Vallejo colors over it, just to have a glimpse of how it will be. The roof was a big effort when I decided to make the house open. I used balsa wood to build the whole inside structure. The attic was supposed to be left empty, just a few roof debris in it. The floor was made of 1mm thickness balsa wood sheets, which I engraved the planks and nails with a metal pin. The furniture was also made from balsa wood. The first paint attempt was done with oils, but the resulting effect didn't feel right, so I moved to Vallejo acrylics. The roof tiles were made with thin layers of Depron, cut in small rectangles and fixed in place with PVA glue. The whole house was painted with Vallejo acrylics. The bricks were painted individually, with various shades of orange, yellows and red mixed with browns. The roof tiles were painted in the same manner, but with grey shades mixed with reds and orange. The inner house was painted white, while the outside stucco with a sand color. Changing the focus to the figures. I like a lot these Zvezda sets, even though some cleaning must be made. However, the poses are good for action scenarios, which is a bit hard to find in 7/2 scale. The major problem of the set is that two figures are exactly the same. A man walking/running with his MP40 under his right arm. I couldn't find a nice place for these guys, so I decided to modify them by cutting under their articulations, so I can basically change the legs, feet, arm and neck positions. Of course some adjustments have to be made, like filling gaps and sculpting with epoxy putty. All the figures were painted with Vallejo acrylics, followed by a subtle filter of khaki, to reduce contrast between camouflage colors, and finally a wash of sepia and black. The figures got a bit dark now that I'm looking at them again, so maybe the wash wasn't necessary. And here are those two figures. One is a fallen soldier, while the other is pulling him out of the street. Okay, now back to the base. A rectangular styrofoam was used as the base, and a piece of Depron in the same dimensions was glued over it and received the engraved stone street, sidewalk and a stone wall. On each step I put everything together to check if it's turning out what I have envisioned. The painting followed the same methodology, a first coat of black primer and individual stones painted with different colors and shades. This will serve just as a base color. Then real dirt was added to the base for texture. On the garden, I made a big tree from copper twisted wires, covered with paste made from tap water, PVA glue and wood sawdust. On the garden, I glued some 2 and 6 mm static grass here and there, leaving some patches of soil to give more variation to this section. Small bushes and plants were added, made from wires, woodland scenic coarse turf and knot leaves. A twig was chopped and glued in the corner to simulate some, guess what? Chopped wood. Moving to the Panzer IV. The kit is pretty good, nice fitting and details. However, the details are quite thick, especially on the side skirts and its racks around the turret and the hull. To solve the problem, I scraped and sanded the plastic racks to make them thinner, and some parts like skirts, mudguards were substituted by ones made from 0.01 mm copper sheet. I wanted to make some damage on the front left of the tank, so I turned and twisted the copper pieces to simulate the damage and take the front skirt plate off. The painting was made with Tamiya acrylics, highly diluted in alcohol. No masks were used. The colors used are dark yellow, dark green and red brown, all of them mixed with buff to make them lighter and give color variation. The weathering was done first with some chipping with camouflage light colors, filled with dark gray. Then I used some dust effects using earth tones and buff with the airbrush. As it is, let's say, an urban environment, I focus more on dust than mud effects. In the end, some dark camouflage color washes were used to build the contrast. The same dust effects were applied on the street and the house. It was done with airbrush and Vallejo filters. Some debris were also added on the street using coarse dirt. The following stucco was made from plaster sheet dyed with sand yellow, and some deck tan was used on the brick section where the stucco had fallen, to simulate the remaining plaster on the wall. Some oils were also used to make some stains and moisture appearance. I have to say that the cracks on the wall didn't turn out as I was planning, and I overdone them, giving them a weird appearance. Well, time to show you the house inside. I filled it with all sorts of scratch-built stuff that I think could be found on situations like I'm depicting. So furniture like chairs, table, shelf and the door were made of balsa wood. The dishes were made from air drying clay. The bottles from clear plastic painted with clear green. The curtains were made with a piece of napkin and some PVA glue to hold the shape, and the living room rug was made with an aluminum sheet foil. I'm quite satisfied with everything, even though it could be better with some 3D printing furniture, but I didn't have any at the moment. Then I just put everything together and this diorama was pretty much done. Well, I left a score for the Panzer IV kit on the description. This was my first, let's say, big diorama with a house on it. I guess I have already evolved quite a lot since this work, in terms of painting and effects. However, like I said in the beginning of this video, I didn't get a lot of modeling time in the beginning of this year. Besides, I am a slow modeler. So to don't leave the channel without content for too long, eventually I will post some of my older stuff in this format. Hope you understand and also like to see some of my modeling history and evolution. Well, see you next time. Cheers!